Hey, so Castle Crashers is a game that I hold near and dear to my heart. As a child, I played it for hours and hours on end. Recently, I got the urge to play it again and found that it was much easier than I remembered it being. Because of this, I've decided to challenge myself by asking the question, can you beat Castle Crashers using only offense? The rules of this challenge are simple. I can only perform actions that can directly injure enemies. This means that blocking and healing are out of the picture. Picking food off of the ground is allowed, as it is not a direct action I am taking by pressing a button on my controller. In addition, I cannot upgrade my defense, nor can I equip weapons or pet orbs that increase it. Finally, sandwiches are allowed, even though they can't technically directly injure enemies, because the game forces you to use them in certain spots in order to progress, and it wouldn't be very fun to say the challenge is impossible because of those spots. With that out of the way, let's get into the challenge. The challenge starts off great with me failing to shovel up a dig spot twice in a row. By the way, the shovel is allowed in this challenge because it can technically deal damage to enemies. The same goes with the horn. Other than that embarrassing display, I get through the home castle without any trouble. I even spawned all the barbarians on the castle wall at the same time to show off while I still have the chance to. Since I leveled up, I got to pick what categories I use my skill points in. Since upgrading defense is banned, my only options are strength, magic, and agility. I decided to focus on strength and magic, since I felt that the best way to avoid taking hits without the shield was to kill everything before they had a chance to hit me. Barbarian War was extremely easy, as it is during every playthrough. That is, until we get to the first boss, the War Machine. That is when the challenge goes from extremely easy to somehow even easier. Even though this is the easiest boss in the game, I still managed to get hit a couple of times because I absolutely suck at this game. After ruthlessly killing a couple barbarians in their sleep, I move on to what is the first somewhat interesting boss in the game, the Barbarian boss. This fight was going really well until I got the boss down to a quarter health. But then I accidentally blocked one of his attacks, which isn't even blockable in the first place. So I don't know why I even tried to block it, but that forced me to restart the fight. You'd think I learned from my mistakes, but I did the exact same thing again. At least this time it was actually against a blockable attack, but still doesn't make it any better. On the third attempt, I actually remembered what challenge I was doing and I saved the first princess. Before moving on, I equipped the Giraffe Animal Orb. It lets you level up faster, allowing me to upgrade my strength and magic a little bit quicker. Moving on to the Thieves Forest, this is where the challenge starts to get a little annoying. Thieves are notorious for spamming arrows at you. In a normal playthrough, you'd be able to bring up your shield and block these arrows. However, without my shield, I had to manually dodge and weave around all the arrows. Around here is when I started to realize just how important random enemy drops would be for this challenge. Whenever you kill an enemy in Castle Crashers, it has a chance to drop an item. This can be either money or food. Since I can't use healing potions in this run, the only way to heal besides leveling up is to pick up food that enemies or the environment drop. This isn't very important right now, as the enemies don't do a lot of damage still, and I'm leveling up very frequently, but it will become very important later in the run. After quickly running past the seahorse to make sure I didn't accidentally pick it up, I encountered the third boss of the game, the Troll Mother. This boss is unique because it doesn't actually attack you. Instead, it spawns a bunch of little trolls to attack you instead. However, these trolls do not have a lot of health and are also easy to juggle, making this another easy boss fight. After no-hitting the mill because I am that guy, I moved on to the Rapid Ride, which goes about the same way as it would in a normal playthrough. I don't even think there are any blockable attacks in this section. That is, until the Catfish boss. This boss has a very high defense, so you have to wait until it gets stunned by a cannonball in order to deal heavy damage to it. Normally, you would block its punches in front of the boat to line it up with the cannonball. However, since I can't block, I had to carefully lure him there, weaving side to side to dodge the punches. While I still did beat this boss first try, this was the closest I came to dying so far in the playthrough. I rushed through the tall grass fields without a hitch other than needing to tank an arrow hit to get past these two bears. The Industrialist magic is really good at taking down the beefy, so I had no problem with them. Pipistrello's cage was unchanged until the boss fight, because you can't even block the cave slams normally. Going into the Pipistrello fight, I was a little worried since you are normally supposed to block his tongue attack and then attack him in between licks. However, I managed to glitch him for a while by standing above him. When that stopped working, I just spammed saw blades until he died. Flowery Field was really easy as always, but then the first actual challenge of the run came in the form of the Wedding Crash level. The waves of coneheads weren't that bad. They were a little annoying due to the constant bomb spam, but I didn't have much of an issue, except when I decided it would be a good idea to try to dig up a sword that I wasn't even going to use mid-fight. The real challenge came at the Groom boss fight. I'm already really bad at this boss fight in a normal playthrough, but not blocking made it 10 times harder. The 2 tables at the sides of the arena had some food, but the 24 health I gained from that didn't stop me from taking my first death. I did even worse on my second attempt, then died almost instantly on my third. After that third death, I decided to play it safe and slow and only attack from afar. However, that still didn't make the fight easy. The groom would constantly run back to his piano to hurl bombs at me, which didn't do much damage on their own, but it made the fight last way longer than it should have. Seriously, this guy would run back to his piano every 5 seconds. It was terrible. But eventually, on my 4th attempt, I killed the groom with only a sliver of health remaining. I leveled up at the start of the parade, so it was as easy as it normally is, and I got through it first try. Going into the Cyclops' cave, I expected to die a ton. This cave has the 3 most annoying enemies in the entire game: thieves, cave slimes, and coneheads. However, I only died 2 additional times before I made it through. After barely making it through the Cyclops' gate, I entered his fortress. I expected this to be easier than the cave without the thieves to knock me out of juggling the coneheads. However, it turns out I absolutely suck at this game. I died here 5 times. However, through my death, I found out another strategy that would help me out on this run: Elemental Fusion. By doing 3 light attacks in a row and then a heavy attack, you infuse your heavy attack with your magic, making it do a significant amount of extra damage. Using this, I was able to make it through the coneheads and 1 fire demon. However, I died to the Cyclops on my first attempt, making me need to go through the fortress for a second time. Once I got back to the Cyclops, I beat him with the help of my magic, but was still very close to dying. After saving the second princess, only after I collected all my gold of course, I moved on to Lava World. I expected this to be the most difficult level so far, especially because of how long the level is, but I didn't expect it to be this much of a difficulty jump. The fireballs that the fire demons constantly shoot were a huge problem. In a normal playthrough, you would simply be able to block them. However, not being able to block means they are way more difficult to deal with. I accidentally did block one, forcing me to restart the level. After 10 deaths, I got bored of Lava World and decided to try the Industrial Castle instead. I don't really know why I decided to do this, because the Industrial Castle is much harder than Lava World, but I did it anyways. I got hit a surprising amount of times by the traps in the beginning of the level. While I didn't have much trouble with the Brute due to my saws, I did have a bit of trouble with the Industrial Prince. After 16 deaths, I remembered about an animal orb that would be vital for the rest of the challenge: Monkey Face. Monkey Face is bought for 325 gold at the church store, and increases the chance of enemies to drop items. While they could drop gold, they can also drop food, which is very important for this run. So I figured that an increase in the amount of food dropped would help me greatly in this challenge, and I was correct. I beat the Industrial Castle on my first attempt after buying Monkey Face. During the attempt, the flamethrower during the prince fight glitched and just didn't shoot for some reason. Even after that, I decided to kill the prince because I was annoyed at him and obtained the spyglass. Now the only thing I had left to do before sailing to the second half of the map was grab the steering wheel from beating Lava World. Monkey Face made Lava World significantly easier. Despite this, I still died an additional 2 times. Partway through Lava World, the Necromancer appears and resurrects these statues into skeletons to attack me. This ended up helping me more than it hurt me, because the skeletons dropped a lot of food to help me heal up before the final 2 fights of the level. After beating up this random sentient volcano with the power of a sandwich, I moved on to the final boss of Lava World, this weird dragon and sock puppet combo that I don't really know the name of. I barely beat this boss, meaning if the Necromancer didn't resurrect the skeletons for me to heal, I would have died. I guess this was his way of saying sorry for what he was about to do to me later in this playthrough. I collected the wheel and set sail. After fighting off a bunch of pirates on the boat, I landed in the desert and began the second half of the campaign. After the first half, I racked up a total of 38 deaths. Hopefully I can do a little better during the second half. My boat docked at the desert full of 3 annoying enemies: antlions, scarabs, and royal guards. Antlions are the least annoying of the 3. All they do is stay still, shoot poison at you, and grab you if you get too close. They can be a little annoying, but as long as you stay away from them, they shouldn't pose too much of a challenge. Next up are scarabs, the most annoying of the 3. These fly back and forth in order to dodge your attack and hit like a truck. They are also sometimes buried underground, becoming immune to damage during that time. Finally are the royal guards. These have a lot of health and love to throw bombs at you to mess you up when you're dealing with other enemies. My first death in the desert was to a royal guard. Partway through the desert, I came across a wave of 2 scarabs and 2 royal guards. This wave is really difficult because of how well the 2 enemy types work together. If you try to focus on the guards, the scarabs will burrow underground and knock you off your feet. If you try to focus on the scarabs, the guards will throw bombs at you, also knocking you to the ground. I died to this wave once, but managed to get past it the second time I got to it. The only other time I died was to this wave of 3 guards and a scarab. This wave isn't actually very difficult, I was just already low in health when I got there. The end of the desert level consists of 2 UFO mini-bosses who spawn aliens to attack you. These both are really easy and I was able to breeze past them, only to be abducted by an even bigger UFO. I set off the alarm in the UFO, sending a massive wave of aliens after me. This section may look difficult because of all the enemies, but it's actually really easy. All the aliens die after only 1 hit, and since there's so many enemies, a lot of food drops onto the ground. After wiping out around 95% of the alien population, this buff alien started a self-destruct sequence and I ran out of the UFO as fast as I could. I managed to get it on there with 15 entire seconds to spare. I landed back in the desert, but luckily, this section of the desert had no scarabs. Instead, all I had to fight were these Saracens and royal guards. After chasing down a Saracen on a camel, I entered a massive sandcastle. Inside, I had to fight a beefy Saracen and then 2 beefy royal guards. I expected this to be very challenging, but my sawblade magic completely shredded them, allowing me to progress onto the castle roof. The roof was easy, but a bit annoying, with a mixture of Saracens and royal guards constantly spamming their magic. Eventually, I stumbled into a volleyball match with some Saracens, and it was easily. I won with no problems, it wasn't even close. They gave me a map which I used to move forwards into a marsh. The march through the flooded temple gave me no problems. The troll mother came back for round 2, but I dealt with her as quickly as I did the first time she appeared. The corn boss normally isn't difficult, but is really annoying. However, I was able to deal with it quickly using my saws. The flooded temple is normally very short and easy, and my saws just made it even easier. I think I'm starting to realize why the saws are considered one of the best magics in the game. In Medusa's lair, the saws finally stopped carrying me. While they're really good against bosses and certain types of enemies, the saws aren't too good at dealing with normal enemies, including the snakies. The mix of snakies and these weird fish things that I forgot the name of, editor note, they're simply called fishmen, I probably could have guessed that, caused me to die twice. The Medusa boss fight was a little more difficult than before, due to not being able to block the snakes, but I still beat it first try. Up to this point, the second half of the game was feeling significantly easier than the first half. However, that was about to change. Full Moon is already considered one of the hardest, if not the hardest, non-boss level in the game, and not healing or blocking wasn't about to make it any easier. I've been playing my first attempt of this level in the background during this introduction, and as you can see, I've already died to the first wave of enemies. My second attempt went a little bit better, with me making it as far as the second wave. On my third attempt, I killed this dude that was throwing boulders at me, and then made it to the actually difficult part of the level, where I promptly died. I thought I accidentally blocked one, so I restarted the level, but reviewing this footage, I don't think I actually did, so I don't know why I restarted. I was about to die anyways though, so it didn't really make much of a difference. On my 16th attempt, I made it to the literal last wave of enemies in the entire level, but then died to the Stovehead or Eskimo, I can't really tell which one killed me. After that, I knew I had to lock in. Then, on my next attempt, after only 15 deaths on this level, I did this. Ice World and Ice Castle were a really good break before the final boss rush, with me not dying a single time. However, I did come very close to dying. At this bridge, you are normally supposed to jump when you hear the Frost King attack, and then block when you hear arrows fire. Obvious problem with that, I'm not allowed to block. To deal with this, I had to perfectly time a magic jump over any arrows that appeared. I was not very good at this, leading to me taking lots of damage. Luckily, I got a turkey from one of the Eskimos at the end of the room, giving me enough health to kill the Frost King first try, with my saws once again completely obliterating its health bar. Next up was the Wizard Castle. I initially only died once to this level. However, you have to replay it every time you fail one of the future boss fights. Spoiler alert, that happened a lot, so I ended up having 12 total deaths on this level. The first boss was the Painter boss, who I, say it with me now, completely obliterated with saws, even with my terrible aim. However, I did finish him off with my actual weapon, which was a nice change of pace. After destroying this crystal, which had no right having as much health as it did, I moved on to the undead Cyclops. While this fight was made a little harder by not being able to block his attacks, I still beat him first try, and even killed him off screen. If you've never played Castle Crashers before, you might be thinking that this final boss rush is incredibly easy. However, this next boss might change your mind. 72 deaths. 72 deaths is how many it took me to kill the Necromancer. This means over half of my total deaths during this challenge were caused by the Necromancer. Instead of explaining why this fight was so difficult, let me just show you. After all that, the final boss was actually really easy. I only died once, and that was because I was being incredibly stupid. I killed the evil wizard, destroyed the arena, and rescued the princess to officially beat Castle Crashers using only offense. If you would like to see me attempt this challenge on insane mode, leave a comment. I can't actually guarantee that I will be able to beat it though. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Bye and subscribe.